I like the sound of that show. I have a niece, Katie, who is, well, she's profoundly autistic. And she's remarkable, actually, and pure love in a tiny person. But she does have many, many challenges, as do her parents. They've sacrificed so much, done so much, fought so hard to get her an education that is changing her life. It is an expensive education, but it does work. Now, that's all in Britain. But the same, of course, the same applies everywhere. In Canada, parents of autistic children have campaigned for years now to have the state at least help them pay for this particular form of education that has been proved to transform the lives of their children. There's no doubt about it. I know parents who have sold their homes, they've taken out loans, they will never be able to pay back, even though they work all of their lives, so as to help their loved sons and daughters. Now, when Dalton McGuinty was leader of the opposition before he was premier, he gave his word, he made a promise, he swore an oath to provide financial help for this, well, powerless, desperately needy community. And then he won the election. And he looked them in the eye and he effectively said, go to hell. They pleaded, they begged, but he said no. It wouldn't cost that much, really. It's certainly not the amounts wasted on gas plants and cover-ups, but hey, look, what do autistic kids matter when you can win the praise of other powerful, wealthy subgroups in society who can help you stay in power? Now, McGuinty has resigned, and his legacy is dark. He lied time and time again. He lied on taxes, gay marriage, religious education, equality, justice, education, everything.
Dalton McGuinty promised the people of Ontario that he wouldn't raise their taxes. He then brought in the single largest tax increase in Ontario's history, the so-called health tax. In 2007, Mr. Speaker, this same Dalton McGuinty...
Again, Honourable Member, please take your seat. I would ask you to please take your seat. I would like you to get to the point of order tersely, as it says in the standing order. Thanks.
Mr. Speaker, in 2007, the same Premier, Dalton McGuinty, promised the people of Ontario that he wouldn't trade taxes. We're now calling for public hearings. We want this Premier to call public hearings. He's nothing but a cowardly liar if he won't do that.
Cowardly liar. The Speaker tried to silence that man, but he was merely speaking the truth. Rolling your sleeves up, talking about your wife all the time, pretending you're a man of integrity just won't cut it, Dalton, old boy. You want to be known as the education premier, but what did you achieve? All-day kindergarten. That was a sop to the teachers' unions, we know it. Make parents pay even more taxes so they can't afford to have one parent at home and are forced to send their kids to public state kindergarten, which doesn't work but guarantees union jobs for teachers at inflated prices. You were passive-aggressive with teachers, giving them everything they asked for at the beginning and then hitting them hard at the end. There will be strikes in future because you created a climate of false expectations. You encouraged perverse sex education. You promoted extreme social agendas. You insulted and abused Christian teachers and Christian parents. And you pretended to be kind and compassionate when, in fact, you were a crass politician and a cold, uncaring man.
How are you, sir? I'm about to knock you down there.
I've got cancer and you're not helping any.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
I believe the study I was on was paid for by the drug companies, and it was very expensive. If I had to rely on the drugs available in Ontario, I'd be dead today.
That was a real Dalton McGuinty. Caught off guard there, you see. Couldn't give a damn. Now you leave behind, sir, one of the biggest political scandals in Canadian political history. That is not hyperbole. And you think you will get away with it. And you know what? You might be right. A life of corporate board meetings, the charging of massive legal fees, lucrative speaking gigs, all of that awaits you. You're going to be a wealthy, wealthy man. All on the backs of the people you broke and the voters you lied to. The legacy of Dalton McGuinty. Shame. Shame, liberal shame. I want to make this entirely clear, Dalton McGuinty, it's not his politics so much. There are all sorts of people I disagree with, particularly New Democrats, but Liberals too. They're my friends. I have great regard for them. There's integrity there. I mean, Peter Coren was God rest his soul, was a man who he really cared and he was committed. Disagree with him on some things, but good man. Bob Ray. I don't agree with Bob Ray, but there's someone there I do believe. Dalton McGuinty, I don't think Dalton McGuinty really stands for anything apart from Dalton McGuinty. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but I think not. Adrienne Batra is never harsh.
No.
I would never trust McGuinty.
No, I don't think that Ontarians do, certainly in the past few months, by evidence of the fact that he resigned to be Premier of Ontario in January.
Yeah.
He's the worst kept secret around Queen's Park, Michael, is that he's been missing in action ever since. He's shown up only a couple of times to do the confidence motions. The budget passed yesterday. He didn't even show up for that. He's kept a low profile because let's look back as to why he even resigned in the first place. It was because the opposition was peppering them with questions daily about the gas plant scandal and the mounting costs and the questions around there. Same with Chris Bentley, the former energy minister. There were 2 contempt motions against him in the legislature. So McGuinty prorogued, meaning he shut it down. He shut down democracy. And he cowered away, and then the Liberals had their leadership race. But I don't think we're being harsh when we say that McGuinty can't be trusted, because I honestly cannot name a single public policy file that the entire government of Ontario is responsible for, and it's a big government, there's not one file that is successful. Not healthcare. Look at e-health in orange. Education. We still have a problem with all-day kindergarten, and we're still having students that aren't being successful enough with the standardized testing. We're seeing, big union contracts that are coming forward. We're seeing the debt has been doubled. We've seen a disaster on energy, not including, not the least of which was with the cancellation of the gas plant. So, I mean, I could go on and on and on, and I have a list, but I think that there is little that this man's legacy will be other than, deleted emails at this point.
He was re-elected because John Tory, who is a man I trust, by the way, and I disagree with John on all sorts of issues, but John is someone who really, his word is given. He, perhaps foolishly, from a political point of view, said he wanted to fund religious schools.
Yes.
Mainly Dutch Reformed Christians. I mean, some of the finest people you could meet, for goodness sake. McGuinty, and then he instructed his people to do the same, went in public to say, if this happens, there'll be rioting in the streets, cars will be overturned. That was so low. Oppose it if you like, but to lie about some of the backbone of Ontario society, that's how he was re-elected.
Oh, I know, but it was effective. It sort of reminds me during the federal election when Paul Martin was running for to become Prime Minister instead of just being appointed. It reminded me of the soldiers in our streets. If you elect Prime Minister Harper, there's going to be soldiers in our streets, women are crying in the corner. That's what it was akin to. But the Liberals are very effective at going out there and doing that fear-mongering. They always say conservatives like to fear-monger. No, it's the left is far more effective at it, because the Liberals, for example, in the past 10 years have given in so much to Ontarians. Yes, we had a struggling economy in 2006, and we continue to do, continue to recover. But they've expanded social services. They've expanded the welfare state so much. No one wants to take that away. And if you are threatened by someone that is a politician that's going to take that away from you, you're sure as hell not going to vote for them. That's the ultimate problem that Tim Hudak, who is the leader of the PC party right now, will face when he goes to the electorate. He wants to freeze all these wages. He wants to put a stop to the runaway spending in various government departments. They don't want that to happen, so you're going to see Working Families Coalition working against that. The interesting part, though, will be how much they support the NDP. The NDP, in my view, looks terrible in all of this. They've enabled a government that is nothing but corrupt. They have a laundry list of issues that is their legacy, HST included. Let's not forget that. Consultants' fees running rampant, wasting of billions of taxpayers' money. That's what the NDP is now being tied to. How effective Tim Hudak is at making that connection to the voters will be the difference between, I think, a Conservative minority or an NDP minority.
Working Families Coalition, which is a euphemism really for, it's teachers and other union groups, because they put their budget behind the Liberals in the last election and the one before to a certain extent, enabled the Liberal Party to then devote all of their money to other causes. I can't see them backing the Liberals in the same way this time.
Yeah, I have a very hard time with that as well. And I think that much of what we heard of so much pressure on Ms. Horvath, the NDP leader, to support the budget yesterday was coming from unions, and even, of course, inside her caucus, many of whom beat a Liberal candidate in the 2011 election. Union-backed. So they're all saying, look, we're not ready for an election, or we don't want to go in an election. You got to support this budget. And yeah, of course, we'll help you out in the next campaign. Whether or not that is the case, I don't know. And I don't discount the Liberals either in this, which is incredibly shocking. Ms. Wynne Premier Wynne has a pretty high approval rating. She is liked. So it's just interesting to watch all of this going on. I think it's far more interesting than the circus that's unfolding at City Hall. But I think there is so much more to talk about. What will happen with McGuinty next? I mean, he will go quietly into the night. He's resigned now today as an MPP. But who knows? Maybe he'll get an appointment somewhere.
Would he want that? He's a lawyer. He can go back to being a highly paid lawyer. Corporate positions.
Hey, look, you and I have covered politicians for a long time. Once they have that taste of the spotlight, it's kind of difficult to give that up.
He has no federal ambitions, I'm sure.
I don't think so. I mean, his brother, of course, is on the federal scene. But look, a former Premier Roy Romano, now in Saskatchewan, NDP Premier. You know, he did the big healthcare study. Former NDP Premier from Manitoba, Gary Dewar, was appointed by Harper to be the ambassador. I don't know if Prime Minister Harper is going to put McGuinty in any sort of appointment, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah, and if Justin Trudeau does win the next election, who knows? Just briefly before we go, the education premier.
Yes.
He began by giving teachers, or his education ministers, every time the teachers' union came in, it was yes, yes, yes. And I mean, really, I know people in the teachers' union who were shocked at how easy it was to get a yes from the Liberals. And then very quickly, they changed their mind, and now we're going to play hardball with you. So as much as I'm not a fan of teachers' unions, I can understand their shock. Well, hold on a moment. I mean, you loved me? No, you hate me? No, you love me again?
I know.
Now, that's going to continue. Whoever wins the next election provincially, that will continue.
Yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate in mixed messages, isn't it? They have had an incredible stranglehold on the Liberal caucus for such a long period of time because so many of their members are in various ridings and have always given them that local support, and the union fees flow into various local candidates. So that's been an obvious thing. And then suddenly, McGuinty, after nearly doubling our debt, has found religion on fiscal conservatism and says no. So it's hardly a shock that the teachers' unions will say, hey, maybe in the next election this isn't going to be on. But I've watched what Kathleen Wynne has been doing in the past 6 months since she's become premier. She's made nice with the teachers' union. She put a new Minister of Education in, who's a former school trustee chairperson, I believe. So that was, so I think the white flag, as it were, to sort of say everything's going to be okay. They worked with him on the reduction of the sick pay and banking, all of that stuff. It's not ever going to be enough, but it may be just enough for the support for our next election, and then they can say, hey, well, look, we got a majority. If the Liberals could win, and they could, if they get into a position where they're in power, then the spending taps are open again.
Dalton McGuinty, we hardly knew you, and we certainly don't miss you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.